Yes. What it do, ladies and gentlemen? Peace to the panel. What up, Marcus? How you doing tonight?
I'm good, Juju. How you?
Awesome. Amazing. And Brass, Pseudo Killer Army. What's good with you tonight?
Excellent. Let's get the energy up. Let's get this conversation going. Fired up and ready to go. Let's get it.
That's hot. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining us for another show. So we sincerely apologize because we usually have our show scheduled on Sundays, but due to unforeseen circumstances, we postponed it for now. So, and also don't forget that we have another awesome Pseudo Killer production for you tomorrow night at 7 p.m. right here on Pseudo Killer's channel. And today's show, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty much a continuation of the last time that we met up when we were talking about some of the major the major complexities, pun intended, functionality of the brain and how all that works. And because it was so juicy and so good, thanks to King Sosa and Kent, adding their input and their expertise on that, and also making it relatable with real life experience, which we will try. Sometimes hard to do, but we definitely try to do that so people can relate beyond the scientific jargon or whatnot. So yeah, we had a lot of fun with that show for real. Understanding how things in our lives are actually affected and how that happens and how that possibly can be remedied. Okay. But we didn't get to finish off. We still had a few things that we want to explain to you as far as like degeneracy and complexity. And we touched a little bit on degeneracy, but we wanted to get a little bit more into it. And then we really wanted to touch on complexity because, as the title says, the emerging complexity of our consciousness. Because with the complexity of the brain and everything that goes on, that is what gives us the consciousness that we have right now today. And that doesn't happen in any type of like magical, miraculous, or unforeseen way, so to speak. There are scientific explanations to why we have consciousness the way we do. And we wanted to get into that discussion and speak on it in a scientific manner and nothing else. Because I know that people can take that emergency and complexity of the consciousness and go everywhere with it, but we're going to stay right here in this lane of science and explain it to you like the experts explain it and share some ways for you to be able to easily conceptualize information. So let's get it popping. Marcus, do you have anything in particular that you wanted to say to the audience about last week's show, maybe dwelling into this show, maybe some points that we can bring back up that were memorable?
Yeah. So I want to make sure we understand that this series of episodes and shows is there to take us all on a journey. So we started early on dealing with the basics of evolution, the Lancet. And as we progress further and further, the complexity of the shows will of course grow with the book. So we're following it as a guidepost for these conversations. And so some points we touched on was the triune brain, how it was assumed for a while, and that's not true. That the brain develops based on the needs of the body. So they're cohabiting together, you could say, which means that as your body becomes more complex, you need a brain more equipped to handle these motions. And so last week, I did a segment, brief part about it. We was talking about how even your dopamine receptors and the processes are even, that's not really new, that you can go back 550 million years approximately and find those same processes being used for motor skills, to reward, for action. And so now we get into some things that make humans specifically unique. So I hope you all enjoy the show. Hope that everyone is enjoying it and learning. And as we progress, we'll start talking about, just to give you all a heads up, more social interactions. Even in this, there's some areas where you can personalize for yourself. So I hope y'all just enjoy it. That's where we at right now. We talked about the brain being a network. This is still part of that conversation in a sense that we're now talking about what you can do with the network. So if your brain is not a singular network, it's really multiple networks working together. And so that being said, we can now begin to analyze how that network gives us what we call the human mind.
Yeah. And more than one mind. It's not just one, right?
Correct. Absolutely.
Right. So, and again, I want to remind you all, like we don't want to do this as a classroom setting. We want to make it more like obtainable, digestible. That's why I always say, like, I want to give it to you in small pieces, little bites or whatnot. That's metaphor for how we want to feed you the information so you can better digest it. Y'all like that, right? That's my metaphor. Okay. But, and we definitely want to make it relatable and fun. But with that, this is somewhat of a serious and complicated subject matter. And we don't want to dumb down the information just so people can get it. We actually want to bring people up to the level of understanding and not water it down, because that's not going to help us. And again, the reason for the show is to shed some light on some information that can possibly help us in our real lives, right? Just like the other show that we're doing that has to do with space science, we want to change the narrative that's going on in the community. And we want to bring shows that actually shows our intelligence in a real way, right? So yeah, pull out your pen, pull out your paper, your cell phone, push a little notepad and take a few notes. This is very interesting, and I guarantee it will be helpful for you if you ever come into a situation where you have to deal with like a stroke, not maybe you, but maybe somebody else, or even other issues, depression or whatnot. Maybe something that we said here today will actually shed some light and give you a better understanding. And before we get any further, Brass, did you have anything that you wanted to ask from last show right quick before I go ahead and shout out this amazing chat that I see in the house tonight? But I wanted to give you a few minutes to, give us your synopsis from last show to carry it into this show.
The thing that I like the most in regards to what we're talking about is the metaphors. Mm-hmm. These metaphors are helping people to understand. But then also, once we're going to get into degeneracy and complexity this evening, that you can get a deeper understanding. Because when you start studying the brain, from what I understand, is you really lead to more questions, right?
Right.
The brain can do this. The brain's like an airport. Okay, so how is it like an airport? All right, then who's the ticket agent? Okay, right. Then who's the pilot? So it leads to more questions, right? So at the end of the day, what I want to do, and I hope that we can get this across through metaphors of just through simple education, that complexity and degeneracy today, I'm talking about what we're doing today. Neuroplasticity, that was before. We have that video, pull out your notes or watch the video and take notes. Right. But what we talk about today will take you further down that path to actually generate more questions. We want you to learn, but the brain is such a complex organ that you really do need to have as many questions as possible. There's no bad questions. We're all in uncharted territory. Even as we're teaching you, or even as we're instructing you with this quote unquote book report, right, as people like to say, that we're trying to do something to respect your mind, respect your brain. We're trying to respect the fact that you don't want to always talk about the same things, hear about the same things, learn about the same things, give a change of pace, and then also we're gonna give you that fire a little bit later, as you'll see. So I'm blessed. I'm proud to be able to be on this panel with Pseudo, Killas, and give y'all this information. So I'm here.
Well, before we get started, I'm going to shout out the chat real quick, and then we're going to dive right into it, literally, and do a little butterfly in that pool. So shout out to King Sosa. He is what I call the mad scientist for real, because he's really one of the foremost in Pseudo Killas that has a foundation besides Marcus on this subject matter. I'm just a student, basically. I don't know how I got this position, but I'm just a student. So every time we do a show, I'm constantly learning as I'm researching to bring you content for the show. I want to give a shout out to Joel, always supporting us. We appreciate you. Lady Kill in the building, Miss Tiffany, Rock City, New York in the building. My brother Malik, Cuban Crisis. You also need to check out Cuban Crisis. Of course, the shows that he does on YouTube, totally different content, but nonetheless very informative, like so much. He does more, social politics and culture, which is amazing. Indigenous African, thank you for showing up here tonight. Also, we have Smalls in the building, Pseudo Killer Army, and Miss Gina, my North African sister. Hey, girl. UKA, what's up, fam? Thank you for coming through. Trust me, I really appreciate the compliment, but I'm not done with you yet. I just want you to know that. I'm coming for you because we ain't done, and we going to stay on that same spot. Choco Kitty, thank you, sis. Thank you for joining us, as always. Jody Breeze is in the building. That's the homie. That's my nigga for real right there, Jody Breeze. And everyone else who came to join us. If I didn't mention your name, my apologies, but we do appreciate having you here tonight. And let's get right into it. So, of course, Juju is known for having her notes because I can't freestyle it, right? A pedagogy is basically the art of teaching. And I'm one of those students that needs lots of visuals for one, and I have to listen, I have to write it down, I have to repeat it, and then do it over for me to conceptualize it. That's me, that's how I learn, but that's also how I organize things so I can bring you content in the most efficient and proficient manner, okay? So maybe I may get a little flack for these notes, but I'm telling you, these notes keep me on point, and also to help me to not miss any crucial points that I want to share with you when we're having these discussions. So we're going to touch on divergence real quick. I know Marcus is really going to expound on that, but I want to give you some pieces so you can kind of understand what we mean when we say, excuse me, I said divergence. Lord have mercy. Y'all not going to correct me? Y'all just going to let me slip like that? Degeneracy, excuse me.
I know what you meant.
They know what I meant. Degeneracy. So I'm going to give you a few bits. Then I'm going to let the panel have some other bits of degeneracy. We're not going to be too long because complexity is very complex. And we really want to get into that so you have a real good understanding on it. So we're still in chapter 2 of our source material. And she speaks on giving us examples of what degeneracy is. Like when you hear degeneracy, you think degenerate, you think not functioning, retarded, maladjusted. Any other synonyms for that when people hear degenerate, Marcus?
Deformed. You got deformed, misbehaved. Like he's a degenerate. You remember Hillary Clinton made that statement.
Oh Lord.
So know. I mean, that's what it is when it comes to behavior. They you're degenerate.
Right,
out of line, out of order. So
So, you got anything to add real quick, Brass?
No, you covered it. Once you touch Hillary Clinton, that's my aim. And that's as soon as you said degenerate and degeneracy, that's the first thing I thought about when she said that.
Our PR dude, I love Brass. That's the homie for real. So degeneracy in this scientific context has nothing to do with the definitions that we just gave you. Actually, it's something like totally opposite, and you probably don't even have a clue to actually what degeneracy means. Degeneracy in this context, dealing with the brain and this discussion is actually a positive thing. So degeneracy is basically these neurons being able to take on more than one responsibility, to be able to do many different functions. For example, she speaks of newborn babies, how when they're born and have these dense cataracts, and the occipital cortex, or the visual cortex, as they call it, usually takes on the touch and feel mechanisms. So it just doesn't deal with vision. It actually can deal with touch and feel. And they can see how that becomes, more of a thing in the baby. They also did an experiment with people they would blindfold them, right? And the part, the occipital cortex still would basically take on the operations for touch and feel, moreover. And then once they unblindfolded the individuals, it went back to its normal functioning of dealing, with seeing. You get what I'm saying? So basically, no neuron has like one, how they say it, psychological function or one duty. Like a neuron or groups of neurons can do several different things. Usually becomes more complicated when you have these hubs, which we spoke of like maybe 2 shows ago. When they get damaged, that can be a little bit more difficult, but more so usually your brain will figure out a way to adapt, right? And things like that. Any one of you want to add to that real quick?
Yeah, what's strange. Well, I don't know if y'all ever seen like 50 Shades of Grey. Anything like that.
I actually have never seen that, but go ahead.
Bring it back, Marcus.
Let's wait. Watch
go ahead, though.
So in that environment, you'll notice that they use blindfolds. That's what they're doing. They're actually tricking your brain to trigger more sensitivity to touch.
Nice.
That's actually what they're doing. So we experience this. We're now giving you the factors that breed to this. So when you're talking about, well, you may not have seen 50 Shades, but y'all know what I mean when I say being blindfolded.
Right.
Y'all know what that means.
I might gotta try that.
So that right there is actual process of what's going on. So your visual cortex becomes more sensitive to touch, and therefore you have a greater sensitivity, and it feels much better.
Right.
Yeah, one of the things that Lisa Barrett said, and I had got into another one of her books, How Emotions Are Made, The Secret Life of the Brain.
That's an awesome book.
She said, and I quote, "This is one of the most surprising things I learned was degeneracy. That a mental event such as fear is not created by only one set of neurons. Instead, combinations of different neurons can create instances of fear. They call this degeneracy. So degeneracy, if you were trying to understand it, it's kind of like its actual meaning is many to one. So degeneracy's definition literally is many to one. And she gives the example of every day as you drive to work, you pass a billboard with, say, the cutest photo of a child. And every single time you see that baby's face, you feel happy and you smile. Now, you see this every day as you go to work. And sometimes you even start smiling before you see it because you know it's coming up. Right. It's always the same feeling on the same road, in the same car, with the same baby and the same billboard. So you might think that the neurons that are creating that feeling inside of you are the same each time, but in fact, they're actually completely different. They're actually completely different neurons giving you the same feeling, even though you're seeing the same thing every single day on the same road in the same car. That's the best explanation that I could give for it.
That's awesome. So, I don't know. Sorry, I got to do this. So, some neurons are so flexibly connected that their main job is to have many jobs. A part of your prefrontal cortex, I spoke about this, called the dorsal medial prefrontal cortex is an example of this. So they talk about how, the brain region is always engaged in body budgeting, right? But the same way that the brain is engaged in body budgeting, meaning dealing with all your body functions, these are the same areas that also control or engage you in memory, also emotion, perception, decision-making and planning, our moral judgment, imagination, language, empathy, and we can go on and on. So your brain is doing so many things at one time. I might get in my head of myself a little bit, but to kind of put it together and wrap it up, and I'm going to tie it in together because I don't want to take too long, but we want to give you the food. Is degeneracy is a prerequisite for what we're about to get into, and that's complexity. And that really gets into the meat of things. It's also where the science and understanding of the brain really comes into fruition when it comes to the scientific community. And I'll explain a little more when we really get down into it. I also explained to you already that no neuron has a single psychological function, but a neuron may be more likely to contribute to many functions more than others. So like I spoke of, you have the neurons and these hubs that have more of a bit of responsibility than just neurons, just located anywhere else. Those hub neurons really important. And anything else we wanted to say? Did we want to touch anything else on degeneracy? If you think that you have a clear understanding of what we actually meant about degeneracy in the brain degeneracy and how that works, go ahead and put a 1 in the chat. If you think that you really need more explanation on that, because I know we did touch on it, but we don't want to rush it, on degeneracy and you would like to hear more, put a 2 in the chat, just so we can gauge the audience and see what's going on. But I'll still give you some more things from my notes. Go ahead, Brass.
Also on degeneracy, because we are I'm Pseudo Killer, I'm Mrs. Pseudo Killas. So another thing that you can look up is a man named Gerald Edelman. He won a Nobel Peace Prize for his work on degeneracy within the immune system. But they took that and generalized these lessons to his later study of brain and consciousness, which he named neural Darwinism. So that's another piece of it. The central idea of that is that each mental event has many degenerate neural representations that are possible, and the brain selects one, like those 2 words that we love, similar to the way natural selection works. So just so you can just so you understand, some of these examples we're going to give you, they may start in nature, but the brain is so cool that people understand that the brain is so cool that they can lean in between 2 things. The man started off his Nobel work as degeneracy within the immune system, but he was able to generalize those lessons into the later study of brain and the consciousness. So I think that's amazing. So if you want to look it up, once again, that's Gerald Edelman, Neural Darwinism. I'll put a little information in the chat about it. And it's literally how you could generate neural representations in the brain. Many neural representations in the brain will literally select one, much like natural selection.
To help, go ahead, Marcus.
Speaking of that, let me I'm big into evolution, and this is the Pseudo Killers.
Right.
So there are some misunderstandings that goes on in the community about what that means. So degeneracy, we're focusing on how the neurons respond and how they act, but this is actually a biological process, right? So it's not limited to the brain. It's actually something that occurs through evolutionary processes. So a prime example is, let me just share my screen right quick. Something that I heard a guy speaking on another channel saying some things that were quite offensive, if you ask me. Can you share my screen, Juju, please?
I sure will.
So one example of degeneracy that we see through biological processes, natural selection, which Brass just brought up, is sickle cell.
Nice.
Right? So sickle cell in West African regions is different. The mutations that cause it is different than what is in Asia. And I'm going to show you a source right quick, read briefly the differences. Somebody was up there talking about that it's not hereditary. And it was, I'm going to tell you who it was. It was scamming Chief Ali.
Exactly.
He was scamming. And he was playing with people's intelligence. And I was offended by him coming on that show and trying that nonsense. But nevertheless, let me not digress into another conversation. So this is
maybe a little, maybe just a little. No.
So this is the Asian haplo. If I'm reading the highlighted section, Asian haplogroup haplotype refers to a variant of the DNA structure flanking the B goblin locus, the site of the HBS gene, which is not encountered in the African population, appears to represent an independent occurrence of the HBS mutation. This haplotype is confined to peoples in Eastern province of Saudi Arabia into India, and contrast with African populations where the HBS gene is associated with a different DNA structure named Benin, Senegal, Bantu, Central African Republic, after places where they were first discovered. So this is saying that in all that sickle cells, right? If you look at the very top, it says recent development of sickle cell disease. Though Asians and Africans both have sickle cell, it's separate mutations that cause it. It's different. This is the form of degeneracy, which is different mutations, right? Different factors bring about similar phenotypes. So, that's one. And another example, because we always like to verify what we're saying. Can you share my screen again, Juju?
Yes, sir.
Let me get it up first. There it is.
Just a moment.
No problem.
It's up.
Okay, so this is the blonde hair of the Solomon Islanders, rooted in a native gene. So this is from Stanford, and they're explaining that the mutation in the Solomon Islands, blonde hair, is different than the mutations that are in Europe. Completely different, yet they both produce blonde hair. We've seen people use this as in certain communities as saying that these people are the origins of the Europeans and all. Just because they both have blonde hair doesn't mean that the processes, the mutations, are the same. And so this is why science is trying to get people to understand that, though phenotypes may look alike, the actual gene variants that cause it are different. That also means that an example for what we're talking about is if you was to raise your hand one time, put it down, and then raise it again, the neurons that are firing could be different. That causes your arm to move. So when we talk about people getting ailments, sicknesses, and things like this, this is what the degeneracy gives us the ability to do. That you can using plasticity, right, still be able to function to a degree. And so that's the beauty about nature in and of itself. Thank you.
Yeah, part of the reason why you really want to learn about your brain is because a lot of these things, and everybody keeps saying pseudos and this, that, and the other, but part of the reason why, we do what it is that we do, it's not as exciting as a bunch of people yelling at each other about, some trivial topic. It's we're trying to arm you with the tools so that you can't get took. When you sit in front of somebody and they just start saying all of these things, what they're doing is they're saying things that are make you feel good. They're playing on your believing brain, and they're playing on the things that you might believe just because it sounds good. They're talking a sing-songy tone or a battle rap kind of tone, and it registers with your brain. But what we're trying to do is give you the tools, give you the actual weapons that you can arm yourself, so that when somebody is saying something that it sounds good, you don't just run with it. You don't just give them all your money and start believing that they have labs and science, and I'm cited and all that kind of mess. None of that stuff, it really matters once you really start learning about the brain, because you'll understand that part of the reason why you do things, somebody can't just get on a channel and just start telling you anything, because you can not just have a believing brain, but an educated brain. Right. And you can use that education as a tool to protect yourself from who we call pseudos. It's very simple.
That's why I always constantly say, common sense will kill you, because you hear that all day, every day, right? Common sense, just use your common sense. Common sense have you, driving into a sinkhole when you thought it was a puddle on the road. That's common sense, because our common sense is only dictated by our senses. And we know, as we engage ourselves more into science and scientific matter, that our senses are faulty. Yes, they have the ability to protect us, and they're there for that. But we also understand that utilizing scientific tools that we've developed to counteract that trickiness of our senses is actually more proficient and efficient. So I always say common sense will kill you. It's critical and logical thinking that we're trying to implement into the community, into everybody. And I would love if we start hearing people say more, oh, that's just, critical and logical thinking, besides common sense, because that's actually what it is. And that's why in science we have these tools to use, because they make things a lot more accurate. And let's be clear. The people who are doing what they're doing as far as manipulating information, they're able to do it is because they know that you don't know what they know. They know that you don't know what the experts, the consensus knows, right? So they play on your ignorance. Be mindful of that. They're playing on your ignorance. So they actually are insulting your intelligence. You get what I'm saying? Because just because you're ignorant of something doesn't mean you're stupid or dumb, but they playing with that because they know that you don't know, so they're going to play with you. So, I mean, to me, that's, totally intellectually dishonest, disingenuous, it's more disingenuous than anything. And that's where, well, Bobby Banger loves to say, the rubber meets the road with it. And I'm just keeping it 100. We're not here to do that. We're here just to offer you tools and information. But moving on, scientists suspect that actually all biological systems have degeneracy. And this is a good thing. For example, in genetics, Marcus just spoke on this when he talks about eye color, or your sense of smell, and your immune system, all work by degeneracy. A lot of times we'll use the metaphor of the transportation system, the airport for this. Like, degeneracy is like you catching a flight to London, right? But you went on May 15th and you went on Delta, and you had a certain seat number, and there was a certain pilot of the plane, and you had a certain number of flight attendants. But then you went again a month later on a different airline. You had a totally different pilot. You sat in a totally different seat, maybe even in first class, and none of those flight attendants were any of the ones you had before. That, in essence, would be an example of degeneracy and how that actually operates and works. And that is similar to how your brain operates and works. So also understanding the brain network is extremely helpful in understanding the brain's dynamic behavior. And we're about to get into it. And this is complexity. The perspective captures so much. So slow changes by plasticity. Then you have faster changes by neurotransmitters and neuromodulators. And the flexibility of the neurons with multiple jobs. So I wanted to get into a little bit what we mean about neurons doing multiple jobs. So just to remind you all real quick before we continue, remember to like and share the show, right? Remember also in the description section of the show, you can either look now or later. We've put in quite a few sources pertaining to the information that we're covering in the show. So you can do some of your own vetting or whatnot, or actually see what we're saying and where we got it from. But also, again, we're trying to put some of these things in layman's terms, but we're not going to water down the information. But definitely like and share the show. I have a few awesome links there for you. And I also have a few awesome hashtags. You know how hashtags work. You can press on them and they'll take you to the page of the individuals, because these are some of the people that are important for the conversations that we've been having today. And one more time, I want to shout out some of the people in the audience. Thank you for having us before we continue and get into complexities. But thank you, Zane, for being here. Omar, Pseudo Killer Army, you're so awesome. Vasa, what's up, Vasa? Thank you for coming. Thank you for supporting, and everybody else who's been supporting. I see the numbers are, coming up slowly but surely. We're going to work on making this an amazing platform with more content, more shows on different subject matters for you. So, we're not always going to be about the rah-rah and the dramatics. we got to learn how to get out of that. We got to learn how to really, focus and exercise our minds, our brains, to be more disciplined. That's not a shot at anybody. That is for us to start leading by example for the younger people, our children, so they'll understand the importance of the information and get involved in these matters, maybe even as skills or trades, as professions, right? I would love to see more Black neuroscientists, you feel me, more Black astrophysics, more Black evolutionary psychologists. So I mean, we can't do it alone. We got to do it together. So getting back into, we're going to get into a little bit of complexity, which, like I said before, degeneracy is basically the prerequisite to complexity. And complexity is really what makes us who and what we are. One awesome and very interesting thing that I learned by doing this research, getting into complexity, is how science is working, reshaping itself, reformulating itself, in order to make this type of subject matter, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, I just lost it. To make this subject matter what it needs to be. I lost my thought. Anybody else want to add in while I'll find it? Because it just ran away.
No, so we're about to go into complexity?
Maybe just a little bit, because
okay.
I mean, you want to beat on the horse of degeneracy a little more, or Marcus?
No. Let's go into complexity, because we can't. Go ahead.
I just want to make this statement. We talked about the brain evolving not to think, but sometimes we think our senses are there for accuracy, and they didn't evolve for accuracy. They evolved so that you can survive, to reproduce. Accuracy is not its concern. And to try to explain that, how can I to give you an example? So to give you an example of what I mean by that is, the chemical that's in mint plants, menthol, right, tricks the neurological receptors, right, to make you think one thing that isn't true. So if you had a fever and you had an inflammation or something in your throat, and you drunk mint tea, inflammation is based off of heat receptors. So your heat receptors, you feel that heat receptor going down, boom, boom, boom. You drink mint tea. What mint tea does is the chemical tricks the cold receptors into thinking that you have something cold, right? And then your brain interprets it that there's no more heat. And so you start breathing easier. It actually doesn't do anything for your inflammation. The chemical tricks the receptors. It does not matter whether it really did or not fix the issue, as long as the senses can be tricked and deceived. And because of that, people are susceptible to a lot of things. So that's an example of what I mean by your senses are not there for accuracy.
So I found it. I wanted to say that science is working to reinvent, reshape, evolve itself to qualify and quantify these particular different sciences. What I mean is the brain and its complexity, because that complexity. So this is an evolving science, right? And as we speak, scientists are working on perfecting it. So we understand that the brain is a complex system, but there's also in science these theories that are being, formed to help better understand and bring clarity to the science. And one of those is called complex theory. Complex theory, though it has a mathematical origin, so to speak, it's birthed out of mathematics. It's being, reshaped and formed to deal with things such as economics, neuroscience, any of these subject matters that have a non-linear component to them, like the brain. And non-linear pretty means like you have two different variables, but they don't necessarily have like a one-way street to how they work or interact with each other. And hopefully by us explaining and giving you all these terms and defining them for you in examples, you can kind of see or visualize exactly what that means. So in essence, I'll say in the next 5, 10, 20 years, we'll be having some, probably some new and amazing insights and details concerning this. Did anyone want to add to that real quick before I go?
I think when we talk about complexity, we've seen how helpful it is to understand the brain as a network. Mm-hmm. So you got slow changes by plasticity, you got faster changes by neurotransmitters and neuromodulators, and then you got the flexibility of neurons with multiple jobs.
Right.
But the brain, the network organization has another advantage as well. It literally gives the brain a special characteristic that is key to creating the human mind, and it's the ability to configure itself into an enormous number of distinct neural patterns. So what happens is, when we talked about the airport before, the world's air travel system has complexity because it's parts. So just we're going back to the brain, the brain, the airport as a metaphor for the brain. Mm-hmm. So if you want to try to understand complexity, to keep it simple, it's the world's air travel system because it's parts. The agents, the air traffic controllers, the pilots, the planes, the ground crew, and so on, they all depend on one another to make the whole system function. Now, the beauty of a complex system is that the behavior of that system is bigger than the sum of its parts. Now, I don't know how else to really make it easier to understand that, but just picture almost like Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving's coming up. So, your aunt's making the macaroni and cheese, and your uncle's making the fried turkey, and whatever else is going on. All these people are bringing all of these dishes together for Thanksgiving. So the complex thing is that at the table, you got about 20 different dishes. You're all celebrating. They all had to drive here to get through traffic. It's literally a complete complex network just to simply have a Thanksgiving dinner. So it's like the complexity of that and all the different moving parts, how they went to the store on their own. You can look at them as neurons, as a complex system, but how they all work together to get it done. Now, if you don't get it in those two examples, I don't know what else to do for you to understand complexity other than what we're about to do now. And on another note, Joel, we're going to get to those two questions. Shout out to the Masi Warrior clan. Those are a good example you put in the chat. But Joel had two good questions. I just want to make sure before we close out the show, we address those questions. So I told him we would.
Shout out to Masi. That is Sean P in the building. Thank you for joining. Thank you for the support. For real. But go ahead and address Joel's questions, and then we'll get into a little bit more of complexity quick. Like we might have a overflow to next show, but we'll do it real quick, but just so you all can get the full understanding. What was the question, Brass? Hello?
Brass, I'm sorry, I was on mute. One of the questions, you can find Joel questions. I was talking my little life away. One of the questions was ambidextrous. I was over here fired up. I don't know why. Complexity. I like this conversation, but
right.
He asked one of the questions about being ambidextrous. He was saying, I think he just put it up again.
I'm trying to find it.
It's the last comment he made. But just so you can give an idea, ambidextrous are people that can use their left and right hand in the same way. Now he reposted the question again. It's probably like 2 comments away. But ambidextrous, from what I understand, is about 95% of the world is right-handed. About 5% of the world, about 4.5% are left-handed, and 1% is usually ambidextrous. Believe it or not, a lot of people that are left-handed, because such a large part of the world is right-handed, a lot of times left-handed people, and I don't know, put a 1 in the chat if you're left-handed, they have to, I'm not left-handed, so I don't understand, but my son
I'm slightly ambidextrous, so I get it.
Okay, right. So left-handed people have the ability most times to teach themselves to be right-handed because it's basically a right-handed world in a lot of cases. But in other cases, there's not a lot of cases where right-handed people teach themselves to be left-handed because it's not necessary. Into most information that I've read on that matter. What?
You back?
Okay, right there it is. According to most of the information that I've read on the matter, is that the left side, and correct me if I'm wrong, Marcus, the left side of your brain, I guess through lateralization, usually controls the right side in regards to that. Am I right or wrong about that, Marcus?
Yeah, they're mirrored, they're reversed. So the left, right, left.
Right. So you're not gonna meet a lot of people that originally right dominant and then they teach themselves to be left dominant. But left people a lot of times teach themselves to become ambidextrous because the world is where you tend to use. LeBron James is ambidextrous. You'll see basketball players that shoot with their right hand, but they eat with their left hand and stuff like that. And sometimes I remember my nephew, he broke his arm really bad, and he had to learn how to do so. There's other cases. But in most cases, a small number of people are born ambidextrous, and as a result, now this is unknown territory that we're getting into. This is not exact science, but in regards to it, they just have the ability. I think it's based on symmetry, Marcus. Right? Or am I wrong in saying that? I don't want to get out.
Let me add. Sosa says, as far as ambidextry, it is unknown.
Yeah, so
and I think he meant more or less if that had to do anything with degeneracy. I'm not sure if you can clarify it. So, sir, just hit the panel real quick and explain it.
Yeah, there's the origins for it is really unknown. You do have some conditions and situations in where people learn to use the other hand. Example was what you just heard. So
I think athletes have that ability though, just because with the training that they do every day, all day, and that's when we got into, like exercising, also exercise your mind and vice versa, right? Because I know like I'm right-handed dominantly, right? But I do lots of things with my left hand, like almost like my left hand is stronger, and things like that. So.
Yeah.
But I also, I played 4 sports in high school and whatnot, and I stayed active. So that might have something to do with whether certain group of people are more ambidextrous than others, but whatever.
Well, you can learn.
You can, right.
You can learn to use your other hand, right?
Or you can.
But as far as being born with it, no one really knows.
Got it.
It is coming up. We're going to talk about situations in which the left and the right brain is disconnected. It's called the split brain experiments. We're going to get into that soon. And when we talk about that, that's when you're going to get more into it in that reference. But as far as that, the origins of it is unknown, but you can train yourself to use either hand. And they used to think that the left hand was of the devil. And so they forced everybody to use their right hand.
Right.
So you got that going on. And then you got some religious texts where you can't shake people's hand with the left hand. So it's a lot based in that left hand stuff. But overall, the origins of it is being ambidextrous is unknown. But you can train yourself.
Got around here calling you the devil and stuff.
Exactly.
Want to burn you at the stake for it.
And then to address his other question, in order to address his other question, Marcus and Juju, he was talking about when you have a concussion, and you have an injury to the brain, I guess like a stroke or anything like that. What part would that fall under degeneracy? Now, as far as from what I read, that was more along the lines of neuroplasticity, where you damage a part of your brain where you're learning how to walk again, and how they literally, your brain has the ability to kind of rewire itself. Right. And you can actually use a healthier part of your brain to learn how to walk again, to learn how to speak again. So that's, for me, that was more neuroplasticity. I didn't really get that with degeneracy. Similar to when Juju was explaining about how when you blindfold someone or blind people, how they learn how to communicate with Braille is the brain literally can take those same things, the same visual cortex, because I know the visual cortex starts in the back of your brain. So when you to take those same connections or rewiring, just to put a simple term on something very scientific, could turn your sense of touch into your sense of a sense of sight. So it's just a little piece. So I say neuroplasticity. I don't know the connection really for degeneracy, Marcus. Maybe if you can make that.
Go ahead, Marcus.
Well, the thing about it is that you're right. That's plasticity in learning that your brain rewires. Degeneracy is more or less based in the outcome. So I don't have to use the same neurons to produce the exact same feeling, emotion.
Right.
But when it comes to actual physicality, that's something different. So there's a study with the England cab drivers that you can look into if you want to learn more about it. And what they did is, in order to be a cab driver in England, you got to go through extensive studies of the map and studies of routes. And so if you look at the studies, you'll find that as they're going through the course to become a taxi cab driver in England, their brains actually go through this plastic motions, and certain areas of it get thicker, and at the same time other areas get thinner. That's plasticity. So that's what we're talking about. So if there's a damaged part of the brain, and from a stroke, seizure, or anything like that, you can relearn by using other neurons in a plasticity type way, where it rewires itself and new axons are given and stuff like that. So glial cells are added. So it's complicated, but that's more or less plasticity, from my understanding.
Yeah, no, perfect. Because we're on a little bit of a time crunch, let's try to get into complexity a little bit more.
We already in it.
Oh, let's go. Let's go. I'm sorry, that alarm means it's 8 o'clock. Means I got to start winding down to wake up at 4. So that's the alarm you heard.
So it says the system of complexity is made with many interacting parts that collaborate and coordinate to create a multitude of patterns of activity. Using the many different positions of an airport is one of the metaphors which we've been explaining pretty much all night. These parts depend on one another to make the whole system function. The behavior of a complex system is more than the sum of its parts. That's a very important part to remember. It's more than the sum of its parts. And then we get into examples where we're talking about in the source material when they talk about the meatloaf brain, and they describe it that way because it's, very uniform or whatnot, and everything has its place. And then they talk about the pocket knife brain where, different section plays a different part. But if you were to take away one of those parts or the area got damaged in both of those examples, then you would have a problem, because in the meatloaf brain, it's just like one singular network. So one thing goes down, then it basically all goes down. And then in the pocket knife, if you lose that one tool, then you no longer have that to work. So our brain is actually better than both of those examples, where it can compensate for that lost tool, one, and it's not just, a whole encompassing, system where everything is just one thing or a singularity. It's many different intricate parts that work together to give us, what we know as a brain and result consciousness as we know it. So I'll go into a little bit of that, and then I'll let Marcus have it. So for instance, like when we're talking about complexity, so you have neurons, right? And then not only do you have neurons, but you have different types of neurons on top of that. We have 20,000 million billion neurons. I forgot the number, million or billion, but it's a lot of them. But you also have different types of neurons, and they also can be shaped very differently. On top of that, you have neurotransmitters. So you have transmitters, and some of those transmitters work as modulators. And we spoke on dopamine the last show, which is a neurotransmitter, but also can act as a neuromodulator. A neuromodulator pretty much modulates or monitors or manages neurotransmission So not only do you have different types of neurons, but you have different chemicals that work as neurotransmitters and neuromodulators. And on top of that, you have this other thing, which Marcus, you can help me out on this, that they call dark matter. And they call it dark matter, very similar to how we talk about that type of quote unquote energy source in the universe that scientists really don't know much about, but they know it's there. Dark matter, same thing. It's kind of like this gray area in our brain, and they're glial cells. They're not neurons, but they do have an effect as far as, transmitting neurotransmitters. But they also act in a way that's very complex that they're still trying to figure out. We can name different types of these glial cells, which are not neurons because they don't necessarily have an electric impulse or anything like that, but they definitely have a very serious role in this whole kind of scientific phenomenon or of neurotransmission and passing along information. They almost like either help modulate also, or they deter, so that was pretty awesome to learn that. And that's when we talk about complexity, like there's so many different parts that work, together to give us the reality. It's not just one single thing, but also those parts are limited to just their jobs. They can do other jobs too. And that's where you get complexity. And that's when you get into like the theory of complexity, because now you have to have a science that's just not linear. So what we know as science today, it's pretty much linear, right? Like this does this to that and this happens. Well, when you're dealing with some of these more complex systems like the brain, you don't have that quote unquote linear equation anymore, right? It gets a little bit more complex. So like I spoken earlier, this is where we're going to start seeing science, because the more information that is available to us, the more that science improves upon itself. It becomes self-correcting and actually also starts to evolve, right? And yeah, I said a mouthful. Marcus, you got anything to say with that, or Brass?
Yeah, that's glial cells are extremely complex, but they are one of the factors that make people people.
Right.
I'll leave it at that because I don't want to go down this dark path, this long road. But it's without a doubt one of the things that make people people. There is actually, I'll tell you this: as the brain gets bigger, right? It expands bigger than the connections it makes. It's like 1.1 to 1.4 exponentially grown. When we talk about I just gave an example of the taxi cab drivers. What they're monitoring is actually the neurons and the glial cells, how they begin to shift. So when we talk about plasticity, or even when it comes to just learning, right? These glial cells help with the firing of neurons. They're more efficient at it. They help clean up the cells. There's micro and macro glial cells. So it's very complicated, but it is one of those things that make humans versus just regular chimpanzees and other primates. I'll leave it at
that. So complexity also empowers the brain to act flexible in all kinds of situations. It opens doors so we can think abstractly, very important, have articulate spoken language, imagine a future different from the present, have creativity, innovation, or innovative thought to construct all these magnificent engineering inventions. So complexity helps us to contemplate the world beyond our immediate surroundings, including our outer space, to care about the past and the future to an extent other than what most animals do. So in essence, if people wanted to feel like, they want to be on their human exceptionalism, square, then that's one place where you could be like, okay, maybe I'm just a little bit exceptional, but don't get too comfortable sitting there, okay? we're not the only complex animals. And so there's examples of that, like octopus or whatnot. You go put them in the tank, and it's been known that they can basically reverse engineer the tank, like tear it apart and get out an octopus, right? Also with birds, you don't think as birds as having complex brains, so to speak, but they're finding out more about birds. Like they have what scientists are saying, this, how shall I say, the maybe the earliest or the most fundamental aspects of language, so to speak. Also, birds are known to be able to utilize and manipulate things and use things as tools. Like I've seen some videos where a bird was sewing literally to make a nest, right? So that's pretty amazing, and that has some sort of complex ability there. And all these things tie into having variations. And what we do know, and what has been repeated, especially as I've been researching for this particular show, is natural selection favors variability, right? And with variability is how, because natural selection favors it, then you become the species that evolves. You become the species that will live to the point that you're able to procreate and reproduce. So, the brain having this complexity is a level of variability, right? And it also gives it the greater chance to, be selected, surviving, right? And whatnot. So that was the most important part of dealing with plasticity, degeneracy, and complexity. Not only the function of the brain, but also how nature favors it, right? Anything else to add, YouTube?
Yeah. So, this complexity, right? Again, it's in the brain. When we talk about things like consciousness, the thought is that it is an emerging complexity, right, of all these interactions, right? Mm-hmm. But we see examples of emerging complexity as small as bacteria. If you want to see a video, I'm going to show something right quick, Juju, of an example of how this emerging complexity can fit. Let me share my screen right quick, give you a nice example of what that may look like. Can you share my screen, Juju, please?
Yes, I can. Give me just a minute. Your screen is sharing.
It was sharing. I don't see it now.
Give it just a minute. Oh. There we go. Jeez. Visuals, yes. Juju loves pictures.
So what you see here,
sorry.
I'm sorry. What you see here is an example of what bacteria does in a petri dish. As you can see, they start off kind of chaotic. You can see the actual experiment outside of it rolling. You can see that what happens is they start to build complexity in that way. So that's just an example of what they mean by emerging complexity with even bacteria. And they use this thing. It's actually in your guts as well. The gut biome works on emerging complexity. Mm-hmm. And our consciousness, according to what they say, the standard now is that consciousness is emerging complexity of interacting parts inside the brain, recognizing itself. So memory to a degree. So that's emerging complexity. Fascinating. If you really want to get into it, it could take you years and years of analysis of emerging complexity. It is a beautiful thing. There are other examples in our human experience. One is systematic racism, right? Systematic racism is an example of emerging complexity in a social environment, right? So when you hear them speak about systematic racism, they're not talking about one specific part of society. They're talking about how all these parts interact and create a new environment that is systematically against certain groups of people. And it also helps clarify why implicit and implicit biases is a factor, because it's regulated through these systems. So
yes, it is.
Sometimes you hear people argue, well, just having a black mayor is not enough. What they're really talking about is the emerging complexity of politics, of economics, of social interactions. A prime example of that is traffic is another prime example. Studying the metals made in a car does not help you understand traffic, right? Because traffic is the car, bikes, lights, streets,
pedestrians
people, pedestrians, right? Bikes, buses, public transportation, all interacting together. And so if you want to analyze traffic, learning about the metal in a car is not sufficient.
Right.
You have to look at the system as a whole to get it. We had a conversation a while ago about free will. In that conversation, we were talking about population, not individuals. Because you can only look at it as a whole. I think Brass was going to bring up something about traffic.
Right. And as late as they've been working on traffic forever, as we build more highways, as we build more ways for transportation for people to get around, right? You're trying to solve a complex problem. You know, traffic is a big issue. How to move goods. You see that during COVID, how the world was in a stranglehold simply because we didn't have the ability to move goods from to and fro. And you'll see where scientists, in order to understand traffic a little better, there was a scientist in Mexico, I believe his name was Gershon. So I'm not proud. I'll get his name before we leave. Where he studied how flocks of birds move to help us understand traffic. One of the things that he said was that science and engineering has assumed that the world is predictable and that we just need to find the proper laws of nature to be able to foresee the future. But the study of complex systems has shown that this assumption is misguided. So by using computer simulations that specialize in adaptation versus prediction, they use self-organization to better help with traffic. So to break that down in English, because I know the Pseudos just showed up, so I just want to make sure that we give them their full bowl of intelligent design, because I know that's what they're trying to give us. I know they I just want to give them their bowl before we leave out. That you can signal clearly. They can eliminate a lot of traffic. They eliminated over 20% of Los Angeles's traffic just by something simple as advancing the state of understanding how birds fly. The traffic light tells the cars what to do, but because of the sensors, the cars actually tell the traffic lights what to do also. Right. So just to give you a better understanding, I want to give you a fun fact, and this is for everybody. There are 100 billion neurons approximately in the brain. I want to say that again. 100 billion neurons approximately in the brain. That's about as many stars in our galaxy as we know it today. So understand that this is a process that in order to understand complexity, just think about it like this. How do we don't know how many cars people are going to buy. We don't know where they have to go. We don't know what they have to do. We don't know what events. Like they just had that sphere in Vegas. And the one I just read an article about how they tried to predict how it was going to affect the traffic. And if anybody's seen the sphere, I'm actually going there right after Thanksgiving. If anybody has seen that sphere in Las Vegas, that is really causing a lot of major traffic problems because they didn't understand exactly how it was going to work. So instead of it being able to predict it, obviously they failed at that. They just got to find another way to fail. So they're using more of an adaptive approach and trying to understand how, like Marcus showed, how bacteria flows under the microscope.
Right.
You'll be amazed because it's 100 billion neurons. And I know we about to get out of here, but I just wanted to say one last piece.
I'll
I
run
guess
it. I'll run.
I'll take this kind of personal. I'll make this personal about me. When I was 9 years old, I moved from a whole farm in Ohio, literally waking up at 5 a.m. We had the roosters, the chickens, the cows, everything. And that was my life. That's what I grew up in. That's an Ohio life. If you're from the Midwest, put a 1 in the chat. If you from that state up north that just got suspended for cheating at football, just leave the chat. But other than that, I got to get my shot in. But
that's hilarious, bro. For real though.
At 9 years old, I moved to literally the projects in Newark, New Jersey. And the one thing that the complexity of the brain, see, I love these conversations about the brain. This is not the believing brain. This is the beautiful brain.
Exactly.
I was able to adapt from 9 years of growing up on a farm to the heart of the projects, 440 Washington Street in Newark, New Jersey. If you're from New Jersey, you understand Prince Street projects and all that kind of stuff down by Symphony Hall. And how I was able to adapt. I'm learning that the complexity of the brain is how I was able to adapt. It's the ability to. It took me a little bit of time, but the complexity, I was able to switch from one environment to another. It's kind of like people that move from the East Coast to the West Coast. They'll adapt. You will figure it out. You will figure it out. That's part of your brain complexity. We were talking about. I want you, always picture when you're talking about your brain. Your brain is in a box. It does not know what's going on. It's a predictive organism. So it's basically reacting to the things to it. So when we're talking about walking up a staircase, now every staircase isn't the same. That's why sometimes, if you notice, you'll trip a little bit on certain staircases. Some of the steps are a little low, some of the steps are a little high. So when you do that, your brain doesn't necessarily know that, but because you have walked a staircase before, your brain will, because it's complex, you will have the ability to walk up many different types of staircases at different levels based on that. But I'll take it a step further. Also, the same way you could go up a ladder is the same way your brain understands social ladders.
Right.
The same way your brain understands hierarchies. It's the same. It's literally all runs along the same process. So when you're talking about complexity, I literally just compared how you would walk up a staircase, how you would move up a social ladder, how you would move up a social hierarchy. It's a beautiful thing. I get this in the Discord a lot of how we interact with each other. We're all people that don't really know each other, and we're literally adapting in real time, making decisions in real time, moving up and down the social ladder. We just got two new brand new pseudo killers, Marcus and DQ. And they literally, from the time they came in, they didn't start off as pseudo killers, but because they had that ability, they had the ability to not only walk up a staircase, but move up the social ladder and move up the social hierarchy. I'm sorry if I sound super excited, but this brain conversation is helping me with my children. It's helping me with my finances. I do public relations. It's helping me deal with people better. So I'm
Brad.
sorry. I get fired up.
Don't be sorry. Talk about it, because that's the important fact, right? Keep talking about it, because you're actually giving the people what we're trying to give them. You're like the real life example right now. So keep talking about it. I love it.
So at the end of the day, it was tough for me, Jew. Yeah, I don't know if anybody in this chat grew up on a farm, but I grew up on a farm, a literal farm. Whatever you picture a farm is what it was. Sloppy cutting the chickens' heads off and things like that. I remember the first time I went, and then literally on a Saturday, I was at the farm. On a Monday, I was at Quitman Street Elementary School. And literally, I got into a fight. This is a funny story real quick. I got into a fight the first day because one of the things that connect me with people in different environments is sports. And that's a lot of people understand that basketball is the same everywhere else. So the first day of school, I wore one that day. I was 9 years old. I haven't lost a fight since, just to let you know.
But, I know that's right. You had to go through some training, though. That's all good.
Right. So literally in the game, you know, I'm used to names like Paul, John, you know, stuff like that. And the guy was like, well, you're going to be playing on Man's team. And I was like, who is that? Or what is that? And he was like, my name is Man. And I just started laughing because I had never heard anything like that coming from Ohio. And I wore that day, you know, but then after that, we became good friends. I joined the basketball team. But just the complexity of that, just how to maneuver. You know, how a lot of you guys went to college. What was the difference? How were you able to adapt from high school to college, from college to real life? So when you look at complexity, it's one of the reasons why Homo sapien is still here. We have the ability to adapt. And that's why we get into evolution. We get into natural selection. Bobby Bank, I'm not calling him Bobby Bank. Unc literally says that a lot of the conversations we have about the brain remind him of evolution.
Right.
And it does. It literally does. I see natural selection all through it. I see evolution.
It's a mirror. It's actually a mirror. Like understanding the brain is actually helping me, especially you too. It seems like understand evolution, but at a microcosmic level, right?
Yes.
So,
yeah. So the highly complex human brain, it's not the pinnacle of evolution, but it's just adapted to the environments that we inhabit. So once you begin to understand that, the brain tends to become easy. It becomes more of an easier subject. But I see we got people that join the panel.
Yeah, we got King Sosa, and we have a guest, ladies and gentlemen, the infamous Lex Vortex. Welcome. How are you?
Amani Nu Pindo Kwawatu. Peace and love to the people.
Peace. And I'm reckoning that was Kiswahili.
Indio, yes.
Okay.
Sosa.
And wait. Let me give you an introduction. Wait, I'm so sorry, King Sosa. You're supposed to go first. You're gonna kill me later.
Yeah.
But we got the one and only PK official, original PK.
Actually,
King Sosa, the mad scientist himself. Go off.
Yeah. Peace to everybody, man. Peace to the chat. You know what I'm saying? Good show. You know, I pull up and do what I normally do, share what I know, learn what I don't know, and bang on Lex.
All day long.
And by the way, just so y'all know, Sosa was once one of my disciples.
No.
Power to the dark. Just so y'all know.
Never.
Oh, the dark. Oh, you was part
I literally thought
you keep saying that.
Yes. Power to the dark side, Sosa. Oh, man.
Ever was a part of Lex Group.
But he was so whack that he couldn't even survive. He couldn't even survive in a low-level debate league. That's how whack he was.
Right. Source up, Lex. Get
a source. You gotta
go ahead. Hey, Lex, what did you want to say?
Don't make me go into the video archives. Don't make
Wait a minute.
Go into the video archives and be the damn dark side.
So, Lex, do you have what is your contention here today? Because you know I'm driving a tank right now.
Right. Yeah. Let's go.
I'll get you out anytime I feel like it, just to let you know. But I wanted to show you a little bit of grace because I know that you may need a little bit of help in really understanding, because I understand that you don't know what the heck you talking about. And for Madan Kemet, that question or answer, whatever you put on the chat about Juju, you proven intelligent design, goes to show me, PK, the PK Army, and the rest of the people that you absolutely have no clue on what science is about, how it works, how it operates. About, wait a minute, let me finish. Let me finish my spell. About, you know, the brain or nothing. Because if you really understood, you would know easily. It's clear as day that intelligent design cannot possibly whatsoever be involved whatsoever, because there's so many implications. Then I would have to ask myself, then what the hell is intelligent design doing? Because intelligent design is a dumb, for real though. So you gotta really try to make it make sense. And yeah, I mean, I done added a couple, I got a couple extra machetes now. I don't just got one machete. I got 2, and I'm still sharpening the blade, but I'm still ready, and I still have that gorilla style for you. Let me know. How about your girl? Lex?
Right. So this is the problem when people try to follow Lex and microwave information. But I'm glad I could introduce y'all to these subjects because before a couple of months ago, and if you look on your page, before I started teaching y'all about consciousness and neuroscience, you can look at the whole Pseudo Killer page. There's no information about it. So I understand you're trying to catch up, but let's talk about it.
So let's talk about it. So us getting into the brain. So if you want to,
can I finish?
Go ahead and finish. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Lex.
Number one, the brother that was talking is talking definitively. That's how I know he doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay, when you're talking about consciousness in the brain, this has been an ongoing conversation. What they're saying today in terms of consciousness emerging from the brain came about in the 1960s. It was a new thing that was introduced in the 1960s. Before that, everyone pretty much understood the differences.
Clickbait worked.
So he doesn't know what he's talking about. So you can look up this conversation. You can go to the Royal Society. You can go to any number of neuroscientists.
Royal Society is a good website.
That is not a definitive conversation. So number one, you're mixing up things when you say you've got in your title the complexity of consciousness, but actually you're talking about the complexity of the brain and neurons. You don't know the difference. So here's my question. Do neurons think or have desire? That's all I want to know. One neuron.
No and no.
Oh,
I'm asking, does one neuron think or have any desires? I know y'all like to jump around and I know you don't like direct questions and you like to jump ahead of the question. But I just want, so what did you say, Sosa?
We all said no. We said no and no.
Somebody said I don't know. I thought
everybody said no. N-O.
All right, hold on.
Can I respond? All right, good. Can I respond right quick?
Just walk.
Hold on, Marcus. Hold
on, Marcus. Walking nowhere,
brother.
Hold on.
Before you can't respond to nothing when it's
let him have the floor. You said your piece. Let Marcus respond, Lex. Let him go.
Respond to what? To what?
Let him talk.
Did you just ask a question?
Hey.
Did you not ask a question? So let me finish.
He said no. So
I didn't say anything.
Marcus didn't say anything.
All right, so what's the answer to the question then?
Go ahead, Marcus.
First of all,
that's a yes or a no.
First of all, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I told you that this is where the conversation is at about emergent complexity. I didn't say everybody agreed with emergent complexity. I said this is where they're at right now in the conversation. So to make it seem like I said it's absolute when I didn't is nonsense. 1. 2, is a molecule of water liquid?
Hold on, brother. Did you answer my question?
Let him finish. Go ahead, Mark.
I'm gonna say it again.
I'm
gonna tell you exactly how it goes.
Because you in the PK house, you gonna have to learn how to act. Why can't you at the door, take your shoes off, and show some respect? That's what you gotta do.
Mute him, Juju.
Go ahead, Marcus.
Thank you.
So I would say to answer Lex's question, which is ludicrous, it's
a ludicrous. I mean, in the Mike Tyson way, it's a ludicrous.
One water molecule is liquid, is one gold atom metallic, is one neuron conscious, is one amino acid alive? The answer is absolutely no. One molecule of water is not liquid. And so liquid in and of itself is emerging from multiple molecules of water. You got to knock it off with the pseudo stuff, bro. You want to try to say consciousness is universal like Dos Anjos do. Y'all a bunch of nonsense. Y'all talking nonsense.
Nuts,
bro.
Also, real quick.
Just woke up today.
Yeah. Also, real quick, before this show degenerates to something else, I want to say one more thing. And I'm glad Kent literally just put flames in the chat. I want y'all to understand something when y'all join these panels. The same way I can get excited about the brain is the same way I get excited about pseudos. So I want you to understand something. It's a kick door policy. Do not try to come into our house put your feet on our couch, your dirty, nasty feet on our couch, and try to destroy what we're trying to do. We are not going to degenerate this conversation into all these other pseudo conversations that Dulcinea and them be having, and Lex has, and all these other people. We are educating you about the brain. Do not come in here to be an agent of chaos. And I'm using the word agent very clearly. You're not going to come in, take over the show, start over talking us. That's not how we play. It's Pseudo Killas with a kick dough policy. So if you ask your question, we answered it. Now move on.
10-4. Ah, got another pseudo killer in the building, ladies and gentlemen. The one and only.
Well, let's go. You left.
You know, anytime Lex shows up, I gotta. I'm so just a bang on Lex and his nonsense. Marcus, get it.
Now he just wasting his body budget. He's just wasting his body budget on foolishness. And pseudos are so used to pseudoscience that they don't understand when we're talking about neuroscience.
He love the consciousness stuff because it's a lot of muddy water for him.
Because it's a gray area, and that's what pseudos live.
It's not even a gray area. We know and understand now, after understanding the emergence of the brain and determinism, that consciousness is purely a byproduct of neurons interaction. So so we cannot separate consciousness from the physical matter, which is a nervous system accumulating in a brain. So that whole argument that consciousness exists outside of is again within the realm of dualism, and we have no substantiation for this purely a mythological concept.
Sosa.
No, I was here for the last. He left.
No, we muted him. Did he leave out the back chat?
He left. But wait a minute. Oh, I got Mac Rob. Oh, another pseudo killer.
We got an early Christmas if he left.
Mac Rob. Yeah, the pseudo killer army came running. I like that.
Yeah, we can do that for the impromptu show, Lex. That you try to get in muddy water with that, and doing an impromptu show, we can have fun and just laugh and all.
We having fun and laughing right now. So I don't know what you're talking
about. We can take him into deep water and continue to drown him over and over. But Lex is a real example of that jellyfish that don't die.
Oh, wow.
I like that.
Cedric, you're going to have to mute when other people are talking. Sorry, just a little technical. But I love you. Mac Rob, Pseudo Killer Official. What's up?
What's up, fam? How y'all doing, man? Just,
amazing.
Peace to the chat. Peace to everybody on the panel. Just listening in. I like the conversation. Again, I wish I was. I could have been more of a more part of it, and but I'm definitely learning. A lot of this.
It ain't too late.
A lot of this is new to me, even considering my background in medical profession. So I'm learning. I like it. This is amazing.
Ain't it?
We also got, put up that wall too to keep the pseudos out while we put this good information out there. So, a little reinforcement.
Exactly.
Yeah. We need the pseudos. No pseudo killers. You just be
need a balance. We got the information
a nice balance
without and he's back, so we're gonna let him on. But we got the information out without the rah-rah. So if there's any contention, now would be the best time to have it and to hash it out. But we can always do an after show or another show, so you can lead on that or whatnot. But I'm gonna let Lex Vortex back on the panel, and I'm gonna go on mute.
Hey, real quick, Juju, before you do that, hey Cedric, you brought up dualism, and Alicia Brown wants you to expound maybe a minute or so on dualism.
Man, maybe we should let's get Lex, because we going after y'all.
Yeah.
Let's get it in. Let's get it in with Lex.
All right, but let's keep this interaction short. It makes my headache.
Lex going to elevate.
You got an echo.
That's Cedric. Sorry. So Cedric, are you going to explain the dualism, or are we just going to go to Lex? What clear direction?
Yeah, let Lex go in. I'll expound when necessary. Let Lex go in.
All right. Alicia, I just want to say this. We'll respond to your question. We definitely will answer it. And if we don't do it in a timely manner, I'll definitely get it in the comments section of the show. Okay? Just for you, sis. And thank you for supporting us and always showing up to the shows. Appreciate you. Here's Lex Vortex. Once again, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, we got Ross, Google Scholar in the house.
Man,
let go.
I got
Introduce
triggered by
yourselves.
one question. So my next question would be.
Wait a minute, Lex. You didn't get crucified or anything. You just fell off, dear. That wasn't me or anything. I didn't kick you off, okay?
Oh yeah, no, it's cool.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, but I'm saying, relax. Before you ask the next question, shouldn't we just deal with the one we just answered? You better ask another question.
No, the brother, y'all went into a whole spiel about it. I just want to know you answered my question.
Said no.
Okay. So, is there any part of the body that operates without the brain in terms of the nervous system? Any part of the body that processes information without the brain?
No, I would say no, because even within the different parts of the body, you still have neurons there that communicate with the brain, even your muscles. So,
I wouldn't be too quick to answer that. There was a study a few years ago.
No, slow down. Let him talk, bro. Let him talk.
You said I would say no because there's neurons all over on all different parts of your body, your muscles and your gut.
All right.
So I would say no. But go ahead.
There was a study a few years ago that suggests.
Why is somebody interrupting? Or
let him go, Google. Let him go.
All right, yeah, let him go. Go ahead.
All right. So, what if there was a part of the body that could process information without the brain? Would you say that part of the body was conscious?
No.
So, no. You can have behavior without consciousness. So things can respond to
a stimuli.
Things can respond to different stimuli without necessarily having consciousness. And we see that with bacteria in the gut, contractions of the gut muscles. Yeah. Now, there is communication between the brain and the gut, but the bacteria in the gut inside the body can actually function not without.
The bacteria, not nerves. Bacteria, not nerves, sir.
So what'd you say?
Bacteria are not nerves.
I didn't say nerves. I said in the body.
Yeah, but you can't compare bacteria operating without the brain because bacteria operate on their own outside of the brain.
Correct.
So that's something inside your body. I'm asking you about parts of the body that's connected to the nervous system.
Okay.
No. So name.
All right.
Name it.
So you're saying that consciousness emerges from the brain from this collective of neurons because they process information, right? And then they have a network, and so consciousness emerges from that, right?
I'm not saying that. That's what the science say.
Okay. So what if my hand had neurons that my hand could operate on its own without messages from the brain? Would you say that my hand was conscious?
No.
Man, no. So just name the part of the body that operates independently
of the brain. I'm trying to figure out then what are you describing as emerging from consciousness? Because you're saying that the collection of neurons and the complexity is where consciousness emerges from. But you're telling me if I have another collection of neurons that do the same thing, then consciousness is not emerging.
I think he explained it already. The ability to respond to a stimuli is not necessarily consciousness.
I'm not talking about responding to a stimuli. I'm talking about actually being the cause of the stimuli.
So I want to talk to the audience.
Hold on,
that have been following the show.
Brother,
this is an example of what.
Brother, I'm just asking questions right now.
I'm talking.
Hey, Marcus is talking.
Mute your mic now, bro. This is what pseudos do.
See what I'm
Y'all
saying?
heard
Now
the
we gonna get
beginning of
rude.
the
I haven't even,
show.
bro. Why we gotta go there with the
We
pseudo
not being
stuff?
rude. I'm not talking
Bro,
to
Hey,
hold
you,
one
on,
mic.
Lex.
brother.
I'm talking to the group that has been following the show, beloved. You can enjoy your question. Give me a second now, and then you can go back to this, whatever you're trying to do. Listen, y'all have been following the show. Y'all was there from the beginning about the Lancet. Y'all are fully aware of the processes that take to get to the step we in now. So as you listen to Lex, remember those earlier lessons. Remember what we talked about earlier in the show about the network and how it functions and degeneracy and emerging complexity. Just keep that in mind as you listen to the questions that
I'm
are
just
being
trying to
asked.
figure out why
Can I
y'all.
also add before you continue, Lex? We're talking about a hand which is fundamentally connected to the neural network of the human body, which ultimately is processed by the brain. Now, this hypothetical is leading us nowhere but down a rabbit hole,
It's
and it
not
has no
hypothetical.
bearing on reality.
What
I
part of
know,
the body operates independently of the brain, bro?
I
Just
know
name.
where he's going,
Go ahead.
but I don't know why he's dancing
You
around.
know, you
Just
know
get to
what?
it.
Talking about the
The
heart
heart,
beating,
the
the
heart
heart beating.
does. The
No,
Yeah,
heart.
no, no.
I know
The
that's where you
beating,
were going.
the
But the
beating,
reason why, the
the
reason why
beating
I
of the
had
heart does.
no, not just the beating of the heart. The heart has the same type of neurons, not the exact same, but they have the same type of neurons. I think it's out. Actually, they've identified over 40,000 neurons in the heart, and the heart could process information without communication to the brain. And actually, the heart is sending more information to the brain than vice versa. That is the science. So the reason
Okay,
why
yeah.
I asked the question, hold on,
I'm aware of the
every
study
time,
that
brother, can I get, like, bro, if y'all are scientists, you should not get
We're not
offended
scientists,
by
bro.
We're
questions.
not
We're not
scientists.
Because
You
this is
said
scientists.
how,
that. You made
We're
that
Nobody
not
up.
ever
scientists.
claimed to
hold on,
be a scientist.
The
this is
Maybe
only
how,
communicators,
well,
from the
well,
consensus and the experts. Let me clear it up.
as
But
far as the,
nobody here but Cedric has can even get
okay,
close to
well,
claiming they're a
Let's
scientist. I have to make it
do
clear
the
for the audience.
And
This is our
I
show. I
don't
gotta
make
do what
that
I
claim.
gotta do.
And I don't
why
make
do
that
y'all
claim
love an
either.
echo chamber? Like, all I haven't even got into presenting an argument yet or anything. It's like if you're having a discussion, then you introduce things and people talk about the information, and then you come to conclusions. The
I was
way,
just clearing up the statement
and
when you
so
said, since you all are scientists. That's all,
I
Lex.
don't know
so
why
And
so
not
Lex
just
like
for
to
you,
do
but
this
I want it to be
dance
clear for the
all the
audience.
time.
Okay? That's
and
all.
so
We're
if the
discussing and we're doing really good. I'm so
all
proud of
right,
us.
it's doing so well. So what I'm asking is, what makes the brain have consciousness and not the heart? If the heart has also not as complex as the brain, not as many neurons, but it has its own neuronal system. Well, it processes its own information and it sends information to the brain. And actually, the information that the heart sends to the brain actually affects the function of the brain. So, what about the neural connections in the brain and the neural connections in the heart? I know they're not exact. The brain has all type of different, nerve cells for different aspects. You know what I'm saying? So, what is the emerging consciousness? Why can't it emerge in the heart?
Okay, so let me ask you this. Do you think if there are two neurons that can be conscious?
Neurons are not conscious as far as we
No,
know in
no.
any
I
science.
mean, what I mean is if there are two neurons working together, can they produce consciousness in your opinion?
No,
So it takes a certain amount, right?
no, that hasn't.
It doesn't take a
Well,
certain
hold
amount.
on. Let me answer you. If it takes a certain amount, then tell me what is the amount and what science have shown that a certain amount of neurons bring around consciousness.
Well, before we get there, I'm
Well,
saying
you asked me a question.
no,
Now you're saying before we get there.
no, because you didn't answer my question. You went to asking me a question.
No, I said no. Hold on. See, this is what I'm talking about. You asked
You
me
said
if I
no
have
to
two
what? What
neurons.
did I say? I asked you
You
if
asked,
it takes a certain amount. You said no. So let's expound on that. You're saying as long as there's one neuron, then it can achieve consciousness.
no, Neurons don't achieve consciousness.
How do we get consciousness?
All right.
Lex?
So good question. So what y'all need to, there's something in science and logic. Correlation is not causation. Any neuroscientist, this is
just get to the answer the question.
Correlation is not causation.
We know that so, you don't have to go and go into that. Just answer the question.
But when someone else is talking, you say, "Let him get his spill out." Let him. Why can't I say that, bro?
This dance that you're doing is not funny. It's not cute. Just get to answering the question.
All right. Correlation is not causation. And as a person who's been reading about neuroscience for the last 15 to 20 years, all neuroscientists know this. So when people talk about consciousness, like when they hook up, scans to the brain or whatever, and they see a correlation of neuronal activity, that does not mean causation, sir. And I'll give you an example from a technological point. Right now, I'm speaking to you. As I'm speaking to you, there are electrical components that are lighting up in this phone. But that is not the origin of the activity. So when I tell you correlation is not causation, just because you see neural activity in the brain does not, what you would have to be suggesting, and this is why I asked you earlier, do neurons think, feel, have desire, or whatever?
Hey, hold on,
right?
Lex. You're doing too much right now. I want to get this on record. Are you saying that the conscious...
I just source how the brain and the heart communicates both ways. It's a two-way communication.
Can I don't understand.
So the heart does not act independently of the brain.
Brother. Yes, it does. It does.
I just saw. I can show you. You want to go source up again?
Bro, and this is what I mean. Hold on, brother.
Do you want me to pull a source up again? Yes or no?
All right, King Sosa. This is what I mean by you got to put a little pause on your Google finger and trying to microwave information.
Because you're going to get a source.
Because when you're doing a gift,
one mic, Google Scholar, one mic.
Brother,
go ahead and source up again.
You wasn't even aware of the information. You just Googled something, and you think that you already
pulled up a source so we can.
I know, but brother, the brain, the heart can operate independently of the brain. If you want to put money on that, we can.
Don't say can. I said can't. Does it operate independently of the brain? Is it a two-way system? Is your heart connected to your autonomic nervous system or not, bro?
Yes, it is, but that doesn't mean that it sends information to the brain and everything it
both
does.
Ways, bro.
That's why the heart has neurons itself that processes information independently of the brain.
You have neurons everywhere, bro. You have neurons in your muscles, bro.
Not these type of neurons.
What are you talking about?
They're a specialized group of neurons, bro.
Juju.
So what I was saying earlier,
Hold on, Sosa. Juju.
Bro, y'all cut me off.
Hold on, Lex.
Can you just pause for a minute, Lex? Yes.
Juju, let me ask you a question. At what point is Lex going to show a source? I'm just asking. Sosa.
I'm asking right now.
Well,
Sosa, because he keeps saying he's saying a lot of stuff, but Sosa.
I'm gonna be honest, bro. I just jumped to this conversation, but I expect when I have these conversations for people to know the basics.
We're not going to respond to you just saying stuff.
For the next show.
I should not have to source up about what I'm saying about the heart.
Because you need to show that consciousness is not a result of firing neurons in the brain.
All right, brother. That's why I'm asking the question. If you're saying consciousness is a result of firing neurons, the heart has the same type of neurons as the brain that are firing.
Show us all.
Okay.
Hold on.
The heart is conscious. That's why
the heart is not conscious. You made that up.
Tell you, brother, I'm gonna show you.
Juju, can you move him to the back chat for a second?
First of all, let me. I apologize for interrupting.
Don't respond to somebody not bringing sources. He just talking.
Right.
That's why it's confusion.
I'm First of all, Lex is mistaking the argument. He doesn't understand emergent complexity. Emergent complexity is not a single part. It is the combination of multiple parts. That is not just neurons. See, you think we because we're dealing with the brain, we already started off the show telling you there's more cells in the brain, like glial cells in the brain. So this idea that Lex is trying to pigeonhole us to his concept of this dark universe consciousness is utter nonsense. Because complexity requires multiple parts moving. It gets so technical into it is that when you look at ants, they diversify themselves for complexity reasons. So you don't have just one type of ant performing one task. This idea that Lex is trying to present is utter foolishness. He's trying to pigeonhole us to say neurons firing equals consciousness. Did y'all hear that in any of the shows?
I'm not trying to pigeonhole you, brother.
I'm not done. Did y'all hear us mention that at all in this show? Or did we tell you that? No, we said it's an emerging complexity.
When Cedric came on, he said consciousness comes, you cannot separate consciousness from neurons firing off in the brain.
And listen what I'm saying.
But that's a fact.
All right, so then why is the brother saying that I said this is what I'm saying about
because what Cedric was responding to your statement.
Brother, that's why I was asking for clarity.
Only thing. You're not asking for clarity. What you're trying to do
is
deceive the people in the audience. I don't care about your feelings and your dicey.
All right, so can I ask you for clarity then?
Cedric, you gotta mute until you can talk.
When you scamming people.
All right, brother. So can I ask you so I know where we're talking about?
You don't know what you're talking. Did you get on the show at the beginning? Do you have a source, or are you in your car again?
Brother, can I ask you clarity? You mean then? Are you saying that the neurons are not what a consciousness emerges from?
I'm saying that the complexity that brings about consciousness is not solely based on neurons. Neurons firing is a part of it.
Okay, what else is it based
on? It's like saying that birds fly in flocks because of feathers alone. It's more complicated than that. Emerging complexity is a
Can
deep
we talk
system.
about it?
Now, no, I don't want to talk to you about it because you're deceiving people and scamming.
Go
to your own show. Do what you do at your own
place. And why did y'all?
You can come up and ask a question, but we're not going to be interrogated.
We're going to do it impromptu, bro. Where we can just bang out with sources and shit like that.
Yeah, you don't even have a source.
We're at the 2-hour mark.
You talking? Would you like me
to
show
you upset?
I'm not upset, Lex. I'm tired of you doing this with no sources. Produce a source. Don't keep telling us you don't know about this, you don't know about that. You ain't got nothing to show us where you're getting it from.
Wait. Let Cedric have the floor for a minute, please. And I need everybody to mute out while he's speaking so we don't have that echo. Go ahead, Cedric.
Yeah, you see, this is the disingenuousness we're talking about. Lex is playing around, and he knows that he is talking about the eccentric cardiac nervous system. This is how the heart regulates itself, right? And its direct environment. It doesn't talk about the heart being conscious or playing a role in the awareness of the environment around us. Again, I'm going to reiterate, the brain plays a central role in what we call consciousness. It's an emergent property of the brain. And yes, it's neurons firing in the brain, not neurons firing in general, Lex. And you're being disingenuous. You need to stop that.
I also want to add
the information. Let me just add this, and the information that the heart gets to determine what's going on, its state. The information comes from the brain.
You see, Lex has been trying to make this argument for years.
Right, and then the heart adjusts, so the brain is still doing what it does. It still is influencing the heart, bro. The heart's not just making its own
been trying to make
decision.
this argument for years that you can have.
Let's get a source, bro. We'll come back with it and bang it out, bro.
Wait a minute. I want to say something for the audience, particularly. So we titled a show "Emerging Complexities of Consciousness" because we basically were speaking on what it takes to get at that quote unquote conscious level and what that entails. It wasn't so much explaining, the intricacies of consciousness itself. We were talking about the inner workings more so. I didn't realize that title would be such clickbait to get into this, but it is what it is.
It's only clickbait for
It's not so
pseudos.
much clickbait. Is that Lex has been making this argument for years that you can have consciousness without a brain, and so this is why he's onto this. This is one of his pseudo claims that he's been making for years, and it's been debunked before, but he won't let it go.
Yeah, so let's debate that in the impromptu show. Les, we come on, we'll discuss. You have your chance. You bring on your argument, consciousness without the brain, and then we'll source up on.
So Sosa, did you know about that subject?
Somebody, Sosa, you saying that you were fully read and informed about the heart's internal cardiac nervous system before tonight, or you just kind of
I knew about it, but that's not I'm not like the damn know everything when it comes to neuroanatomy. No, but I still didn't recognize it working independently of the brain, like without any influence from the brain, because the brain is controlling everything.
Hey, if I may ask,
no, not, brother. The brain is not
influence and everything. But we'll just do a show on that, bro. Come back and debate emerging complexity. We'll do it from our side.
Yeah, we'll do that another time.
But with sources though, so we can see where you're getting your information from. We can see what we getting. We're gonna share it like that. We're not gonna do.
So what you want to do, Sosa, and I keep telling you that, just Google the hard problem of consciousness, and when you Google it, right, don't just pull up the first thing that comes up.
Get yours together, bro. I'm not gonna do that. I'm saying don't give me no ammunition. Just get your stuff together, and then you present it to us.
A statement to you, dude. I know y'all don't like to be challenged in front of your crowd because they realize you're lying.
We're good. You're good.
Hold on, put it in the back chat.
I don't want you to give me no hint, bro. Don't help me out, bro.
Why not? That's what we're here for.
Just make it tough. Make it tough. I like to get my head beat in.
Wait a minute. Can Mac Rob, you have the floor.
Yeah. Just for a brief moment. As
long as you like, fam. PK
I'm familiar with the cardiac conduction system. The intercalculated discs that help create the electrical charge for the heart outside of the brain. I'm familiar with that. I'm familiar with the conduction system of the heart, start with the sinoatrial node, all the way down to the Purkinje fibers. And I understand the role that the autonomic nervous system plays in the heart, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, and how it controls the heart rate, as well as cause the blood vessels to constrict, jacking the blood pressure up enough to perfuse the brain. What question do you have about the brain?
So I'm asking, can the heart do that on its own? Cause constriction on its own without the brain?
Can the heart cause constriction of the blood vessels, or can the heart contract without the brain?
All right.
Can the heart squeeze without the brain? Yes. But it will not do that in a live body for long, because you will need the oxygen and glucose stores in order for the brain to continue that.
Huh?
Yes, you need oxygen and glucose in order for the brain and other organs in the body to be able to do what they do. The body works with glucose and oxygen. Absolutely.
Need oxygen. So, but you're saying, all right, so you're acknowledging the heart can run functions without sending information to the brain, right?
Can the heart contract without the brain? Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Talking about the beating of the heart?
The beating of the heart, yes.
That's
but
what I said. Yeah, the heartbeat. Yeah, okay.
Exactly, the beating of the heart.
The brain will control the heart rate. The brain makes the rate go up and down through the autonomic and the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, which are part of the autonomic portion of the PNS, or peripheral nervous system.
Can the heart process pain information without the brain?
No.
Yes, it can. So you might want to look that up, brother.
No, it can't, Lex. No.
You're saying that the heart can process, that a human can feel pain without the sensation from the brain?
Yes.
I
in the heart. That's one of the main functions of the intrinsic cardiac nervous system, bro.
Source. Sure source.
Pain receptors.
Sure source, Lex. Source up, Lex.
I'll have to
exactly.
jump off because I'm on. No, I am. I'm a jump off. Because I'm on my phone.
Bridge.
I'm thinking about that. The brain has a pain center. How do you feel pain without the brain?
All right. Now, that's a good question. Now, if I show you that when I come back on here, then what is going to be your next thing after that?
Go get the source and find out.
No, but I'm just saying, what is going to be, because y'all are saying no. What is going to be?
If you can come with a reputable source, then you were right.
Yeah, that'll just be right, bro. We're not going to. That's still not going to.
I'm saying I'll be right, but then what is the implication of that in terms of what are y'all saying? Because you're saying no now as if
we're just wrong about that, bro. We move on. Ain't that big of a deal? We've been wrong before.
Hold on, bro. It means more though. If it's right, you're just saying we're just wrong about that. Well, you're saying because you're telling me that absolutely the heart cannot process without the brain. It can't process pain without the brain. And why are you saying that? Because why are you saying that? And if you're saying it doesn't, what are the implications?
It means you were right about that. It doesn't mean you're right about everything.
Just go get it, man. Jesus Christ, man. Like, it don't change nothing, bro.
Right. You can get a cookie.
That's a fallacy of reasoning because you're right about.
We'll give you a
Didn't
cookie.
He just say he was about to jump off a bridge or a cliff.
Share what I know, learn what I don't know, bro. They ain't changed. Go ahead.
Right. Like what's our motto? Like Pseudo Killers, we know how to say we don't know. Like it's okay to get it wrong sometimes. Like getting it wrong actually leads you to better understanding and learning and actually getting it right. So there's nothing wrong with that.
He was so disappointed with that.
He was so
disappointed. Not a man, but that ain't that type of contest around here.
But when you're having these conversations, you should know these things. If you're
we're not
everybody doesn't know everything, Lex. Right. When we're having these conversations, let me finish. Let me finish. When we're having these conversations, it's important for people who might not know to learn. I'm one of those people. That's okay. That's okay, though.
Hey, and Juju, let me say something. I just want to bring everybody back because the Agent of Chaos did his job, completely railroaded the show. We're nowhere near what he's talking about. Just so you understand, Lex, you're a really good pseudo, and we appreciate that. That's why we let you on. But I want you to understand, we're talking about a book. You might not know that. 7.5 Lessons of the Brain by Lisa Feldman Barrett. So forget the title. The conversation that we're having tonight was about degeneracy in the brain and complexity based off of a book. We've done 5 shows before this. So you're jumping in as though we just let me finish.
Consciousness.
So what we're literally doing today is we're going over chapter 2 of a book, just to remind the chat. Because I know, just because I know we went left now.
I'll check out this comment though.
But I just want to remind everyone, we're talking about a book, a chapter in a book. What you're doing now is something else, but I'm about to call you Pseudo. Lex, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, bro. Listen, and I mean no disrespect, I'm serious, because Lex, I actually think you're very intelligent. No cap.
Power to the dark side.
No, listen what I'm saying. Unc helped me understand Lex a lot better. But what I'm gonna say to you is this.
You understand me.
Okay. No, he helped me understand you. Yeah, come on, so what I'm gonna say is this.
I didn't know he understood me like
that.
Let
me finish. One mic. At the end of the day, it's not that we're telling you to go get sources because we don't think you're right, wrong, or otherwise. We have no problem stating when we're wrong. But what the reason is, you can't ask us to respond. You just can't keep spouting stuff out with nothing reputable behind it. And we're supposed to give you reputable science based off reputable sources ready to present a source, to just you talking. That's not how this is going to work, ever.
Well, I can't vouch
go get a source.
He does have a laptop, and
go get a source and come back. That's all we asking you to do.
Go get that source, bro.
It's all good.
You know, those pseudos don't never have no laptop and don't never have no sources. That's what we do know.
And they always in the car.
Pseudo starting.
Well, for the people in the audience, I'm sure if they go do the research. Because honestly, like I said, when I be having these conversations,
I said you gotta mute out. You gotta mute out.
Talking about a cell. And I start talking about, there's a membrane on the cell. I don't expect no one to be like, pull up a source to prove the cell has a membrane. That's the basics. But y'all got it.
Go get the source, bro.
So
go get the damn source. Goddamn, you talking me to death, bro. Go get it.
Let me bring us back to evolution.
Talk about it, nigga.
Right?
Find the dark side, nigga. We talking about get that damn
PTTDS.
Yeah. So let me bring us back to evolution, because I think we're getting away from the central ideas of evolution and getting into spookism. So we learned in chapter 1, the first episode, that the brain evolved based on biological processes, but it's based on body plans and shapes, right? We didn't actually talk on it, but as the sensory information gets further and further away from your central nervous system, it has to compensate for that in many different ways. That's what we mean when we say body plan. You have pain receptors throughout your body. That's why your fingertips, in your legs, you have taxic responses. Taxic responses are specific responses to stimuli. Melanin is a tacit response. Your brain doesn't need to say create melanin, it responds off of light. The brain interprets these responses and paints a picture so that you can understand your reality, so that you can grow old enough to reproduce. We don't have to get further than that. So what Lex is attempting to do is to bring us back to the concept of spookism. There's some mystical form out there that is now controlling and modulating these evolutionary processes so that we can believe in some spooky stuff. But spooky stuff don't help you with cancer. Spooky stuff don't help you raise your kids.
Talk to him, Marcus.
Spooky stuff don't do nothing for you in that regard. And so we are not going to push past the basics of what we've already discussed in these previous shows. I say again, the purpose is so that you can reach it to the age of reproduction. Evolution is very clear on those processes and stages. Lex wants to take taxic behavior and move it from taxic behavior to consciousness. A great book you can read about it is The History of Ourselves. I'm going to tell you the name of the person. See, we don't got to argue about this with a dude with no sources because we got plenty of them. So let me tell you the name of this book.
Brother, you're throwing shots at me.
I'm not throwing shots.
Hey, Lex, you could have hopped off and pulled up that source, bro.
It's called The Deep History of Ourselves.
Hold on, the brother just throwing shots at me, but they don't want me to.
So who's the author?
Joseph Ledoux. Joseph Ledoux.
Can you put that in the chat to make sure the people get that information?
Before you answer, Lex, I want the floor.
I appreciate this discussion. I'm done.
So scared of me, bro.
I'm not scared of nothing. I'm not scared of
because
nothing.
you made some fully. You just said
Lex, you're not even supposed to be here. Go get the source.
You think you just gonna hop on here, just run your mouth with no sources?
I just have questions about what you said.
Do you have a source, Lex? Do you have a source?
Brother, when did
you have a source?
Brother, where did your source come from?
Please.
You just gave evolution a purpose like it was a person.
I didn't give it a purpose.
So explain that.
I didn't give it a purpose.
Brother, let me ask I'm not even, I just want to, why can't y'all
Gotta take a time out. Gotta take a time out. Go ahead.
So he said the purpose.
Let him finish, please. Please, I don't want to put you in the bag.
Why they talking, bro? Go get that source. Then when you come back,
go get the source, Lex.
Jeez, I'm trying.
We want to see the source. Go get it.
Yo, I don't know how the people watch y'all do this. It's so
natural selection, right?
Feelings are mutual, Lex.
Works on human variation, right? That's what we're dealing with. I just gave y'all the Lancet from the first episode. You can follow along and see the evolutionary processes that may have taken place to bring us to this point. The central nervous system runs throughout your body. There's communication between the body and the brain. The brain is an organ, just like your heart, just like your lungs, just like your kidneys, your liver, and the function of it all. The function of it all. Neither directional is to what natural selection is for what? To reach the age of reproduction. Now, Lex can argue and say, no, but we got 1,000 sources for that. So I'm not going to keep going back and forth until he produces a source. I'm done until he shows one.
No, I'm not going.
The brain regulates.
I'm not even talking about that no more, brother. Y'all can leave that alone. I just want to know.
No, don't leave it alone. Go get that source, bro. Come on.
No, I'm not getting the source, brother. Y'all got
okay. Then
all right, man. Show us over, dude. Come on, that's
come on.
Yeah, because we are the home of Source Up or Shut Up. That's our intellectual property.
You know why he didn't go get the source? Because a pseudo always dies by that role.
So yeah,
the tool to kill
a pseudo gonna die at their source, whether you got it or whether you don't, you gonna die. So that's what it is. But ladies and gentlemen, we've been over 2 hours. We really do appreciate you all coming out and supporting us again for this series on the brain. And we'll be back here Sunday around 6:45 to continue this discussion, maybe get a little bit into complexity and then move to some other things. But again, we thank you for joining. If you enjoyed what you heard today, hit that
before we go, can I answer that question?
And Cedric, don't mute your mic. Come to St. Martin and cut you. But yeah, and I just want to give a few shout outs because we got a lot of people that have joined us, and I thought that was pretty awesome. So I just want to give a shout out to Muntu 2.0, Real Thought. We see you in the building. James Modesto, used to call him Airplane James. What happened to him, y'all? What happened?
Still is Airplane James, flying airplanes.
My sis Agent Honeydew, and a very intelligent sister. I'm really glad to see you and thank you for supporting. I'm gonna give a shout out to Lex Vortex. Thank you for deeming us so important that she wanted to come over here and speak with us. I'll take that. PTTDS. Babylon Dunn is in the building, of course. Zane Montego. I'm gonna do it again. Vasa. I really appreciate those who I forgot to name. I'm sorry. Posterior Thought, Babylon Dunn, Alicia again. Cedric, did you want to answer Alicia's questions real quick before I let y'all say what y'all say?
Yeah, Black Eagles coming up next, y'all. Black Eagles up next, y'all. Be ready.
Yeah. Y'all hold on for that last finger coming up right after this. But go ahead, Cedric, and then let everybody have their piece and
yeah, sorry that my mic is messing up, but Lex's whole philosophy is built on dualism, most commonly refers to mind-body dualism, philosophical view which holds that mental phenomena are, at least in certain aspects, not physical phenomena, or that mind and body are distinct and parable from one another. So the mind and the body are distinct and operate on separate arena, and the mind influences the body and not vice versa. So this whole philosophical paradigm that Lex is standing on has no empirical source.
Nice and clean, Cedric. I love it.
Go ahead, Brad.
All right, so just to go all the way back to what we were talking about. We covered degeneracy. We covered complexity. I'm not going to let him destroy the beauty that we built.
Right.
We covered degeneracy in the brain. We covered complexity. We covered how it activates in traffic. We covered so many things in regards to the book that this show is based on. Lisa Feldman Barrett, 7.5 Lessons of the Brain. So listen, we understand pseudo. That's fine. Like Sosa says, no pseudos, no pseudo killers. So I understand that part. But I just want you to understand something. We're not going to sit here and present sources to your techno babble. It's not going to happen. If you want to come on, to these shows, other channels, they do whatever they want. They cite it and all of that stuff, black bulls, black people, whatever they want to do on those channels, you can just get up and just start talking. And they just will give you all the
representing the source every time, though. But go ahead.
Are we primates? Are we monkeys? All that mess, that's fine. You could do all of that, but you have to present a source. We're not going to put our source to your believing brain. Don't forget to, and I appreciate everybody for coming out. It's just sometimes There's no need for that. We need to stay on topic when it comes to these shows because people are trying to learn. Don't forget to plug your show tomorrow, Juju. I'm excited about that.
Oh yeah, Our Galaxy and Beyond by Anthony and Juju, and we're going to be doing James Webb Space Telescope versus Einstein, to be or not to be. And we're going to get into a little bit of the first images ever done by James Webb Telescope and discussing gravitational lensing. So that's going to be pretty exciting. And I'm definitely going to have lots of pictures and beautiful ones, okay? Because, yeah, we got some stuff going on, but we'll talk about that more tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, right here, 7 o'clock, Our Galaxy and Beyond. Thank you. Marcus, Colonel Chilimwe, you have the floor.
Hey, I appreciate everyone who came out. I want to make sure that everyone has a good understanding of where we at with the conversation. As you see, you got a lot of babble at the end. With no sources. But as you have seen, the Pseudo Killers have provided numerous of references for you to use and go back and do your own study. Keep in mind the differences of what you see so that you will not be confused later on in life, as so many people have been done when people come in with the sly, slick talk nonsense. I appreciate each and every one of y'all who have taken time out of your day and shared it with us as we travel through this conversation on the brain, the mind, free will, consciousness, and social realities of being human at this present time. I want everybody to be clear that evolution has no direction. We are not the pinnacle, the top of.
Doesn't favor us.
It's not about that. And if the environment changes too rapidly, we up out of here.
Yeah.
We had a clear example of what a virus can do, shut down whole systems over the last 3-4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have to play around with this. We want to see both humanity as a whole and the intentional groups that we're dealing with right now, Black folks in America and throughout the diaspora, get involved in science. That's our goal. Get involved in science. If you don't like what the scientists say, you think somehow or another you doing Google searches is going to be able to now overtake science, right? I'd rather you go to school and get a degree and meet them at that symposium.
I want to see that paper. I want to see that paper they're going to submit into that journal article. You feel me? Because they want to overthrow science and the consensus. I'm waiting on it.
We can see a prime example of the nonsense when a person says, y'all scientists, after we done told people 1,000 times we just promote scientific literacy to a community that seems to be behind in it. And so these are the type of things we do. We got people running around talking about they doctors. They ain't got no degree. The degree
can't even spell science in a degree, bro.
Right. Degrees on there with misspelled words and all this. It's just it's nonsense. Go look at parking wards. You see the guy standing in line trying to get a ticket, but he's supposed to be a Moor. This stuff is getting ridiculous. We getting out of pocket with it. And so the Pseudo Killers is here to address it. So I appreciate each and every one of y'all, man. It's been a pleasure. This is Chilawambe. Appreciate
thank you. Because we've been slaughtering our Chilawambe. That's Colonel Chilawambe. Google Scholar.
Let me dip out. Let me just say, Lex got a source. I posted a source. I posted in the the Discord.
It's too late. He said we'll go get a source.
I know we gotta go, but I told him we get back to him another show.
We definitely will.
I gotta get the conclusion because the source is like it's more the abstract with the recent findings.
Okay.
And, I'm seeing from 1991. So we gotta see if it's up to date. But
1991.
He did post the sources based on findings from 1991.
All right.
It's the heart little brain conversation though. But I posted a source in the Discord, Malcolm, too. If you want to look over it, I'm gonna check.
I don't think Malcolm's here anymore, but I'll make sure we'll tag him in that. Well, go ahead and say your last words real quick, Sosa. So
yeah, sure. Blackie, you up next, man. Peace.
That's part, that part. Thank you, Google Scholar, for
thank you.
joining us.
Yeah, no problem. I was enjoying the show. I was listening driving on my way from work.
Thank you.
And I heard Lex come on, and Lex come on. I have to show up because
I know.
Yeah, but
I love it.
Lex is somebody that already debunked evolution like 5 times already. So but
he's a glutton for pain, obviously.
Yeah, but it was good information. So thanks for that.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate it. Again, to the audience, we have sources for this show in the description box. Also, we have links to our other social media platforms, Pseudo Killas, of course. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or feedback, please leave it in the comment section. I beg of you, please. And if you enjoyed the show, then just come back and see us. We'll be doing this every week until we finish this particular subject, and then we'll go to something else. But we're having fun right here. So again, thank you. And we're going to say peace and leave you with this. Good night, y'all.
Yeah, it's DQ, baby.
Maybe not.
Pseudo Killas, what up? Check. Tapping in, what's the subject? Evolution or revolution, we ain't done yet. Laying flat like Sanchez, it's a bomb threat. I know my flow like Angozi. Source up and show me, homie. You shut up and mute up a moment. The mad scientist, I'm knowing all the components. We own it, and we gon' off it if it's pseudo. You do know we don't entertain that keyboard judo. That big Bobby banger out of Baltimore. Done it all, shopper folks. Sold a little something, but I taught you more than your average teacher. I had to reach you at your level to bring you up. No devil can never beat you. With precision of a magi, the information supplied by some guys get debunked on live. CK and Juju, I chill in the cut. But if you boys wanna fade, then I'm chefing you up. I organize live, the beats of disorganized truth every time. Kudos, who those niggas? Decorated pseudo killers, space sage Africans, back again. An organized lie, the beats of disorganized truth every time. Kudos, who those niggas? Decorated pseudo killers, space sage Africans, tapping in. I always been fly, that's an actual omen. You can catch me in the sky, ask Anthony Bowman. You see me with his telescope, I was actually floating off some good kush. The Sabio is actually growing. See, Gullah and Kent is where the money gets spent. Them boys got some books that cost as much as your rent. The second verse should be smash rock well, but I rock well. Underground like Sumerian rock whales. In the ring like I'm the rock whale. Hell, create a different wave that can rock whales. Hell, shit swell like lunar tides. My entendres off Gandra to who describe. Euthanize foolish guys. Scholastically, haphazardly. Turn your camera on and look me in my eyes. And please do subscribe. 8 to 80, blind, cripple, or crazy. You in for a new surprise. It's DQ, a organized lie. The beats of disorganized truth every time. Kudos, who those niggas? Decorated pseudo killers, space sage Africans, back again. An organized lie. The beats of disorganized truth every time. Kudos, who those niggas? Decorated pseudo killers, space sage Africans, tapping in.
Good night.
Awesome job, Juju. Awesome job.